Okay, so we're here today with Lisa Neal from PremierOne Home Inspections to discuss all things home inspection. Take it away.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, Lisa, and everyone for letting me come and answer any questions that you guys may have. So it's really awesome that you guys submitted a whole entire page of questions.
Yeah, we got a lot of questions posted in the Facebook group leading up to today's event. So she's going to cover a bunch of those for us.
Yeah, and that makes it super easy. Then I know I'm talking about what you actually care about, not just blabbing.
Exactly.
Okay, so first question was, what are the different scopes of inspections and what do you recommend for what? So we have everything down from your basic just straight inspection, maybe someone on a budget who just wants to get,
the major health and safety things checked out.
Exactly. And then we have packages that we do, which are really popular. So our most popular packages are Essentials Plus package. So that includes inspection, thermal imaging, radon testing, and a sewer scope. So that covers all your bases for your clients.
Thermal imaging is what?
Thermal imaging uses an infrared camera to scan the house. So it really lets you look at areas of the home that you can't see with the naked eye. So let's say there is a leak behind a wall that isn't very obvious, or it's very small. That camera detects very subtle temperature differences, so it's really easy to look at that. They use it on the electrical panel to make sure there's no hot breakers that you can't see that are dangerously hot. Under sinks, we use it a lot on the ceilings right below where a bathroom or a laundry room is to make sure nothing is going on in those walls. But yeah, that package is we just adjusted our prices today. It's $545 for that package for all of those services. But our inspections start at $295 for just a condo inspection. So, and they go up from there just depending on what the client wants or needs, and also depending on seller's disclosure. We offer mold testing. So, and then I think this person had asked, when do we recommend certain services on what properties? So it really depends. I mean, we always recommend our Essentials package because I think that those are the most important things. A sewer scope almost always on every property, even on a new build. At first we didn't really recommend that, but as we started to do a lot of sewer scopes on them, we realized that there's issues with those lines too. Mm-hmm. We saw ones where the PVC line was completely disconnected. So it would go from the house and it would stop, and there was a break in, just a completely missing section, and then it went to the city main, so everything was just draining right into the ground. Yeah. So eventually, it just would have gotten saturated and come up. So it was really,
that's terrible.
And then, we've had one where the pipe was crushed, so probably some big cement truck backing up over the ground above it just compressed it down. And so, if your client's on a budget or something and it's a new house, forego the sewer scope by all means. But, there are the instances where that does happen. So I think that's always, since it's such an expensive part of the house, it's a great thing to get checked out. So feel free to jump in with any questions you want. I'll just go down the list.
Sure.
All right. So do we offer a free re-inspect once the sellers have completed work? So our pricing is pretty competitive. We're not the lowest in town, but we're pretty competitive. So to do a re-inspection, it does have time and costs associated with that. So we don't do it for free. It runs about $100 to $125 to check out everything again on the house. But if you're in a bind and you give us a call and we're like, hey, we really just need something checked out real quick.
One item, not necessarily a full house re-inspect.
Right. Yeah, just give us a call and we'll send someone out. We've got guys all over the town every day, so it'll be no problem swinging by, taking a look. Let's see here. So do you offer pre-inspections? And if so, are you open to being paid at closing? So yeah, we do a lot of pre-inspections. And it's so great because for the pre-inspections, your sellers can really have the power to get everything done ahead of time. And then you can know right where you're at as far as pricing too, because then you know the full condition of the house. And then you can decide, or the seller can decide how they want to get, or what they want to fix if they do. And they can usually do it for a lot cheaper because you can shop around and have your, handyman come out.
Gives them more time before their house hits the market to get potential problems resolved, and then it would also give them some reassurance on the back end that we've already addressed everything that's going to pop up.
Yeah. Is that done by the seller then? So the seller, the seller puts that together, and that's usually when they are getting it ready to list. Okay.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
At the same price?
Same price, yes. Yep, because it's the exact same inspection, so hopefully that eliminates any surprises along the line for them as well. Trying to think
I
what
feel like
else.
there's a lot of advantages to that too. I mean, I feel like it would give them basically not necessarily a guarantee, but it increases the likelihood that deal is going to stick. Like a contract's not going to fall out based on this big surprise that comes up on inspection that no one knew about.
Yeah.
Right.
It also gives the buyer confidence that the seller is disclosing everything, that they're doing their due diligence to have the house ready to go.
Well, and another big component of that is the saving money piece, because if the seller is really handy, they can probably do a lot of the repairs that need to be done, versus now we have this inspection resolution that says we need a qualified professional to do all these things, which gets expensive. So,
Or like one that I'm dealing with right now that needs the electrical panel replaced, and it's a 14-day close. My inspection objection's tomorrow, and closing is next Friday. So this would have been super helpful had the seller realized that there were problems with that prior to, because my client's a cash buyer, so we're closing super fast, and now they're going to have a week and a half.
Lincoln Red, I don't know what that is.
Now we're going to have a week and a half to get an electrical panel replaced.
Yeah.
It's going to get interesting.
Hopefully that works. Works good.
Yes.
And then, are we open to being paid at closing? We can always do pay at close. We do ask for the title company information so we can invoice them. Sometimes we will put a credit card on file, like a seller's or buyer's, just to ensure that, hey, if we don't get paid after 60 days or something, we have some sort of a backup. Because unfortunately, we have lost out a couple times on that. So
That's important.
yeah. All right, let's see. Do you offer a military discount? Yes, we do. So we do $25 off for a military discount. We also do a realtor referral discount, which is the same. So we're going to try to extend a discount to every single client that comes our way, if we can. So,
Let's see if any other.
how quickly can you schedule an inspection and get a report back to me? So we typically book about 48 hours and we can get an inspection in.
That's great.
Yeah.
Because timelines these days are...
Yes, exactly. And then, obviously summer gets crazy. And I don't know how this summer's going to look with the inventory, but, we're prepping for it to be busy, so.
It'll pick up.
Yeah.
ECS seasons.
Exactly. And then as far as our reports coming back time-wise, we get them out either same day or following morning. So sometimes they have to, do some research and follow up on things to add to the report, but they'll get it out pretty quickly to you guys, especially if it's your deadline. They'll make sure to get it to you that day. All right. And then, do you offer any continuing education credit opportunities for real estate agents? So yes, we are approved by DORA to do that. We have a course that's going through to be approved by them right now. So once we get that, we'll be able to offer it. So hopefully maybe Zoom or, some in-person ones here coming up. So, yeah.
So what are those courses usually like?
Well,
what is your current approved course?
The first one we're doing is just like an inspection 101. So basically walks through everything we do, just the process, basically. I didn't put it together. My husband did, so I'm not quite sure what.
We'll talk to each other.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. When we walk through a home, what should stand out as being a red flag? That's a great question. So, it's a tough question, though.
It's hard to get an all-encompassing answer on that one because it can be so many things.
Yes.
I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously can walk through and realize some of the things. The major stuff would be like stair step cracks. Those are concerning. That's probably a structural thing. Where if you see anything on the exterior wall or inside where it's doing a crack like that's concerning. Obvious uneven flooring. So if you walk into a house and it's you very clearly something's wrong there. So one program that we offer is called Ask an Inspector, and you can use it at any point. So like if you're walking through a home with your client and they look at something and they're like, oh, I don't know about this, I don't like this, snap a picture of it, text it over to us, or send us a picture via email, and we throw it out to our entire team. And hopefully get an answer for you. Maybe put your buyer's nerves at ease if they're concerned about something. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
Along those lines. So I've shown 2 houses this week that are have a bathroom in their lower level, and both showers tend to pool down in the middle. Like they look like they were recently redone, but somehow the floors keep going down in the middle. Is that normal?
Right in the shower. It should to a certain degree go that way, but I don't. I'm not sure.
Well, they
have
both were
to
like
have some level of draining
I
to
guess
allow the water to
drain.
drain.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure that was normal.
Yeah,
I actually saw a bathtub in a similar situation, and my client happened to also be a general contractor, so we were able to have a little more in-depth conversation about this bathtub that we saw. And so it's like the entire bathtub was obviously running downhill. Now they are supposed to have a certain level of grade to push that water down, but this one had way more than normal. And what clued me in is I was looking at the grout line between the tub and the wall, and it was really wide at the back of the tub, and then as you got closer it was super, super narrow, and you could physically look at the tub and tell that the whole thing was moving downhill. And he's like, there is something definitely wrong with that tub. I don't know what happened. It was an older house, it was an older condo, and I think my suspicions were confirmed because it's been in and out of contract for 4 months now. Because I still see it pop up, and I'll get an update price has been lowered. There's definitely something weird going on with that place. I'm glad that we didn't offer on it, but you'll see some crazy stuff for sure. I saw insulation with a cardboard box yesterday. I have a picture of it.
With a cardboard box?
They had put up cardboard.
For insulation?
Yep, in a mechanical closet. Yeah, right there.
How about that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's by during the inspection?
No, actually, but I did see it. And I don't know if it's truly a concern.
Is it on an exterior wall? That would be insulation?
I don't know that it was on an exterior. So this was in the basement.
Okay.
We'll talk.
Yeah.
We'll talk.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know if it was a concern or not, but I'm just people do some crazy things.
Wow, that is interesting. But the Ask the Inspector program can be used for your clients too. So let's say they move into a house and 6 months down the line something weird starts happening and they're like, I don't know what this is. We'll try and help them out as much as possible going
I was
forward.
just reading something the other day on one of the blogs that I follow, and my home had been sold for 2 years, and they started to get some warping under the floor, so they were trying to go after the inspector, but the house had been 2 years from
Inspection day.
selling. So, how long do you, guarantee you, or 2 years, I think, is long enough for somebody to do their own damage. I don't think that you could go back on the inspector or the seller for that.
Well, it doesn't necessarily guarantee about future defects. They can only inspect what's wrong then.
Right.
So it would be a little difficult,
Yeah.
unless they were able to prove that floor damage existed when the home was inspected.
Yeah, it was, to me it was kind of very cut and dry, but everybody else was like, well,
Now, if there was a reason that was missed that caused that, but if that wasn't happening at the time, that would be very difficult to, tell that something in the future like that would happen. We do have we miss it, we fix it guarantee. So, if there is something that, we should have caught, we're going to take care of it. We're going to do right by the client. But yeah, that kind of stuff where it's something that happened in the future, that would be that's a little more gray. It really depends on what caused it and all of that stuff.
yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like it was 6 months.
Right, and we usually, I mean, if we're going to get somebody to call us and say, hey, we feel like you missed this, which, I mean, it happens.
We're all
we're all human.
humans.
Exactly. But it's usually within like a couple of months. It's not, much longer than that. But, I mean, and we've gotten callbacks on things that are like, well, I ripped out this ugly paneling that was down in the basement, and it was covering a wall that was just like, bowing in, and it's like, unfortunately, I mean, there's limitations. We just can't see everything.
We're not tearing down walls to
right. And unfortunately, some sellers, they will do stuff like that.
like hide
Yeah.
imperfections.
So I imagine that when it's furnished, it's harder to inspect too.
Yes, and that was exactly, I think that leads into exactly what let me get to that question. What are things home inspectors typically miss on an inspection? Which is a great question, but that is definitely one of them. So concealed items, anything that's furnished. So if you think about your home right now and you have, outlets that are behind a couch or whatever, we can't move everything to
Or
check
behind
it.
a china cabinet.
Right. So, if we get callbacks, it's typically on stuff like that, the small things like an outlet that isn't working that maybe we weren't able to inspect, or maybe there was an area rug over a part of the flooring that, we aren't able to lift up a table in order to look at the flooring. So, those kinds of concealed defects, but again, if a client gives us a call, we'll try to work with them on stuff like that as well. And then other things would be, like the HVAC system. So not necessarily that we missed something on an HVAC system, but we are not licensed and we don't have the technical knowledge to be able to do what a HVAC technician does, when they go in and they inspect it and they clean it and they service it. So, we can just take that panel off, set it aside, make sure there's no obvious issues, no charring, stuff like that. But an HVAC technician is gonna really get in there and make sure everything is working 100% and there's no issues with it. So in every inspection report we do, we always recommend an HVAC person come out prior to escrow. I think that's one of the most crucial parts of a home, because if that's not done and then they start having an issue, there's not really much we can do, because we can't inspect it as thoroughly as they can. Obviously, they have a lot of technical
I
expertise.
feel like that it applies to most things. I mean, they're home inspectors. They're not licensed electricians. They're not licensed
Right.
plumbers.
So that's
they're not
why-
licensed HVAC people. So if something comes up on a report that they consider to be a concern, like whatever industry that falls in,
Right.
then relying on that exact industry just like a roof. Like, hey, I see some spots on a roof, but I'm also not a licensed roofer.
Right.
Maybe you want to get a roofer out here to give you a true professional opinion of this. We can just document what we see, and that's about the extent.
Right. So exactly, we are generalists. We couldn't be, thorough if we were saying every single part of the house, we are experts in. That's just not realistic. So we try not to refer out, obviously everything, but the important things that we know that, hey, this definitely needs someone to take a look at. We will put that in there. But definitely the HVAC we do on every inspection, because it's so crucial. Let's see. Where I am. What should our seller do to make everyone's life easier as far as the inspection goes? So we actually have a form that I can send you guys if you would like. But basically, like clear access to breaker panels, furnaces, water heaters, the attic, one other, and the crawl space. So a lot of times people just have all their stuff piled on top of like a crawl space access, and it's really hard to get in there. We will move stuff to a certain extent, but if it's big heavy things and we're moving large,
Clear an entire room to find where the panel is.
that might be something that we have to come back for, and ask the seller to move, especially if it's fragile stuff. We don't want to damage any of their items. Padlocks from gates or anything else that they have a padlock on. I think you can put one on your electrical panel and stuff like that. So we ran into that where we can't even get it open. And as far as the electrical panel goes, they don't just open the little doors. They take the whole dead front off. So we need a lot of access to be able to get that. So a lot of times, people stack things against it thinking, oh, they have access because that little door is right there. But we have to get the whole thing off to be able to look behind it. And then they can make sure all utilities are on, especially for unoccupied homes. So most of the inspection will rely on those utilities being on. There's not too much we can look at except for like structural and things like that without utilities on. So that's an important one. Replace non-working light bulbs so we can confirm functionality. That's just a simple thing just to run through and make sure those are good to go. Empty the washer and dryer if they're being sold with the home so we can run a load, because if we don't want to damage anyone's clothing. So if there's clothes or something in there, we're not going to run it unless they're there and we have their permission to do so. And then secure pets, that's the other important one. And we've had a few close calls with inspectors and pets, with the being bit. So, yeah, so I'm sure you guys run into that too, where it's hard to get showings and stuff. But
is it one of the houses that I was looking at? In the MLS, in the agent remarks, it said dog will bite in in caps. So I was like,
well, guess what? You just got yourself a lawsuit if you know your dog bites.
I don't know. We didn't go to see the house, but I was like, well, that's bold.
Get that dog out of there.
Yeah, I think I'd take my dog with me at that point. Okay, what sets one home inspector apart from another? I think it's just the experience. So it's really crazy. In Colorado, you don't have to have any sort of licensing or experience to be a home inspector. So you could decide you don't want to do real estate tomorrow and say, I want to be a home inspector instead. And you could start marketing yourself, and that's it. There is nothing wrong with that. So it's kind of crazy. Other states are a lot more strict. So it's interesting because, like you said, Colorado is really hard to get licensed in as a realtor.
Yes,
but then the home inspector, literally anybody could do it the next day.
Interesting. So there are certifications that you guys can get through various entities.
We're certified through InterNACHI. So at a minimum, I would say that should be what you look for in a home inspector, someone who's certified. But even so, we have guys who we've trained from the ground up who came to us with that certification, and they're nowhere near ready to go out and do inspections on their own. So it really requires that experience of getting out there and looking at home after home after home after home. And we've done thousands. We've been in business since 2008, so we have a lot of experience when it comes to that. So I think the experience is the most important part of it. And then other than that, looking for an inspector that backs their work, doesn't just say, you're on your own now with your clients after that. So make sure to take care of them. We also offer a warranty. So the warranty is good for 100 days, so it plays off of our company name, PremierOne. So 100-day warranty will cover, and actually I think that there is something in there, that covers that. So your major components in the home will be covered for that 100 days. So let's say your buyer moves in, something develops and they're like, oh shoot, we just spent all this money on our house, we have depleted funds, have them give us a call and we'll get someone out there and take a look at it. So
I'll just say before we get too far, because I know in the contract too, you have to say who can come into the house, and they say licensed inspectors, so you have to check the box underneath that too, because you guys aren't licensed.
Yeah, we're certified, but unfortunately you cannot get licensing in Colorado as of yet. I think they're trying to change it, and I hope they do. I really do, because we get a lot of just, inspectors that join and then they drop off the
kind of fly by night. They realize that they don't have what it takes.
Yeah, and it's not as easy as just it's not as easy as just saying I'm a home inspector. But so unfortunately, no, certified. But that's what it says in Colorado. Like it says, interesting.
Yeah, when you do a listing contract, your seller has the option of allowing or not allowing certain people into their home.
Okay.
And sometimes they only allow licensed realtors into the home.
Yeah.
So which is why so often we're accompanying inspectors, or at least going and giving them access to the home, and then maybe giving permission to maybe come back and just lock up when the inspection's complete, things like that, so that we're not necessarily sitting there for 3 to 4 hours while they're doing their work. That could get a little crazy, and it's usually just handled on a case-by-case basis. I always chat with the listing agent, like, hey, what do your sellers want me to do? Do they want me there for 4 hours? And I've yet to have anyone say, yes, they want you there for 4 hours. That would be a little tricky to fit into a schedule, but we do what we have to.
Yeah.
I've sat in one because one was one of the houses that wasn't ready when they listed it, because it was a flip. And electrical outlets were like, the switches were like hanging and everything. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna come kind, and yeah, it was. I mean, do you mind if there's an agent there?
Oh gosh, no, not at all.
And they also don't mind if the buyer is there for their inspection. I mean, there's nothing necessarily for a buyer to do for that 3 to 4 hours, but
yeah, it's actually
if they could be if they really, really wanted to be, but they're going to be very bored for 3 to 4 hours.
I agree. But I had one buyer who was there for 3 to 4 hours. She was she wanted to know every little detail, make sure that the inspectors were doing their job.
Yeah.
You'll get those clients from time to time. I had one like that too, and I think he ultimately got bored and left, and I was like, okay, I leave too. But as long as they're there, we have to be there too, so I generally don't.
And it's really good. We get calls from buyers should I be there for the whole thing? What should I do? And I just tell them they certainly can, but if they want to come at the last, maybe hour, then the inspector can wrap everything up and do a quick walkthrough and show them all the important things, like their emergency water shut off and anything that they found that might be concerning. So but absolutely they can come and hang out. And the only thing we do ask is that they do not follow us up on the roof or in attics and stuff like that. Anything that would be dangerous like that. But yeah, they're welcome to. Absolutely. And actually it is preferred because I think that, even if they show up for a little bit at a time, it's easier to explain stuff that way than versus pictures and trying to figure out, okay, well, what room was this in and that kind of thing. So, okay, let me see. I think we are on to... Yeah, I think we covered everything that you guys had asked.
So I know Katrina had a question about flat roofs because she deals with those a lot downtown.
That is one. That is your story. So we inspect flat roofs for sure, and then I think she was asking who a go-to person in town.
Yeah,
would be
for a roofer. Do you know someone?
Not particularly. We recommend First Priority Roofing. They're a really good roofing company that we've referred a lot of people to, and I'm sure they probably would have some good information on that. And so I'm not sure in particular, but
Are there typically obviously there are going to be different problems for a pitched or flat roof, but which tends to have more problems?
That's a great question that I can't answer. I'll find that out for you. I'll throw that out to our inspectors and get some. Yeah, no, that's a great question.
And then my other question is radon. Can you explain radon and the testing and everything? One of the reasons why I am specifically asking, my dad was a home builder in town, and he's older, so he's kind of crotchety, but at the same time, he said, as far as radon is concerned, everything has to be shut up. The house has to be shut up. So the test, if the test is skewed by opening a window, how does radon fluctuate when the windows are open? When
there is airflow or movement.
And because we can open our windows pretty much every day. Between what, obviously you're going to say that the radon thing, what is it called?
The machine?
Yes, is good. But what does it do over opening a window?
Okay. So, ideally testing would be done under closed conditions because you want worst case scenario, you're in your house, it's winter, you're not opening your windows a lot. We're going to be in the lowest level of the basement. Whatever, we won't test in a crawl space. It's going to be a lowest living level. And then the window thing is interesting. Depending on where the window is opened, it can affect it one way or another. It can actually increase it by increasing the pressure. Yes, increasing the pressure in the home, or it can decrease it. So one way or another, a window open will likely skew the results in one way or another. And maybe it's good for seller, it looks lower, or maybe it even goes higher than it normally would be. But if we see anything unusual in our graph, so our machines take hourly readings and then it'll average it, and we get a graph at the end. So you can see all right, if it starts and it's going up and all of a sudden we have a huge decline, okay, something's off.
Something changed.
It typically stays pretty consistent. The only time that we see abnormal spikes would be if a cold front is coming in, and that's because of the pressure change. So we do kind of take that into account. So not always something, you know, where someone opened a window and invalidated the test, but you know, we can usually see. You can usually see if something like that happens with the window being open.
So is it still possible to get, so in regards to this machine placement, let's say it's a ranch and it's occupied and they have bedrooms down there, so could you select just one room in the basement and close it off? Like say in a closet or a storage area in the basement that's not used every day.
Exactly.
To still try and get a good reading.
Yep.
You don't necessarily have to put it in like the big rec area or something like
exactly.
that.
So there's certain criteria. We can't have it too close to windows or events. Can't have it in a mechanical room.
Okay.
Not ideal in a bathroom. So we're going to try and find like a bedroom or somewhere in the center of the house that's going to give the most accurate reading.
Is there a misconception with enclosed basements having more radon versus like a walkout basement?
No, I mean, I think that's probably pretty valid. I mean, it's so hard to say though, because radon varies so drastically. Like, my radon levels where I live are usually fairly low. Our neighbor across the street tested and they had 12 point something. And so, I mean, we're right by each other and ours were fine and theirs weren't. So it really is just dependent on the soil that you're on and the concentrations of that house. Like, I wish we could say there's certain pockets, like, oh yeah, you're going to have problems with radon in that neighborhood, but you really never know. We do know up in Florissant, Divide, anything in Teller County, very, very likely radon is going to be high. So I would absolutely test for radon if you're out there. One of our inspectors actually lived up in Teller County, and his radon was like, I want to say it was like 118. Wow. It was unbelievable.
And what should it be?
Under 4.
Under 4.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that the highest? 100? Or
that's one of the highest we've ever seen. Yeah. But
it was in an inspector's house?
Yeah.
Ooh. He was like, hey, I'm going to try out my new machine.
And it's hard when the levels get that high to even mitigate it enough to where it would bring it down to a safe level. So that's tough. Yeah.
So what does the machine do?
As far as just testing? The mitigation machine. Yes. Oh, yes. So there's different types that they can do. The most common one is a fan. So it goes underneath the house and it will pull the radon gas out from underneath and send it up a tube out of the house, outside of the house, I should say, before it can even enter the house. So it's just this active fan. And then, you know, if people have radon levels that are kind of borderline, there's always things they can do to reduce it. They can put down like vapor barriers in a crawl space, or, you know, open a window every once in a while. So it doesn't always have to be, you know, you install a mitigation system installed. Right.
Yeah. Do you guys know what one looks like from the outside?
We actually had one installed in our house.
Oh, yeah.
Let me see if I can find a photo of it for you. I can do that.
Usually you'll see like this big white pipe
I've
the
seen
whole
it.
side of
They
the
kind of
house.
look like a funky little
Exactly.
And then I know some mitigation, they do like a gutter instead of that big like PVC pipe. It just looks like a gutter on the house, which looks nice as well. So it can be done where it doesn't
blends in a little better. Cool.
Mold, I have a question about this. Mold isn't very common in Colorado, as far as I know, right?
No, it's not something that, unless there is a water problem in the house, that, you know, I know like in Florida, mold's, you know, pretty common.
East Coast is very much.
Absolutely. So here, not so much. It's really going to be if there was a problem with the house as far as water intrusion. So something coming in from the outside, a busted pipe. We just did a mold test recently for a realtor. On the seller's disclosure, they posted that there were several leaks that had happened throughout the years in the house that had been taken care of. They got it mitigated, and we did the mold test, and it was still, the mold levels were really high. So that's probably more when you'd want to use a mold test, is if, you know, hopefully they would disclose that anything like that had happened.
Somebody asked me about a grid loss. I don't remember.
Oh, that was a
Separate.
That was a title question, I think.
Do you see many meth houses?
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, sorry, I'm like going in there.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I'm curious too. Do you do that kind of testing, or do you refer that out?
We do refer it out now. We used to do mold testing, but the lab that we used, that we were able to do it, they unfortunately closed here, so we can't do it any longer. But we did like hundreds of meth tests along the way. We've never gotten one that was positive back. So I don't think it's not super common, but I mean, obviously it does happen. But of the ones that we looked at, and it's not always obvious, like you mentioned grow houses, and there's definitely things that you can see in the house where you're like, okay, this was probably a grow house at one point. Down in the basement they'll have weird
Tons of
electrical,
lights,
lots of light, weird electrical that was ran to be able to accommodate that. Yeah, and they'll note that. They're not going to, by no means are we going to say this was a grow house, but we'll put, abnormal stuff in there. So, maybe that conclusion would be drawn.
Yes, yes. All right.
Yeah, because that's what I kind of one of my questions was. My question was, what's going to stand out as like. So that's
yeah, definitely odd electrical like that. I'll have
because it requires a lot of electricity for all their lamps and lights and heaters and
a lot of weird plumbing because of the water requirements. I'm going to put this out to our inspectors and see if they obviously are out in the field every day. So I'll try and get some more information on this for you and send it out of what you can look for when you're going through a house that might be like, oh, that's
something weird happened
supposed
here
to be like that.
The one house that is saying that the light switches were like hanging.
Yeah.
The electrical box needed to be replaced. First of all, it was like plastered over the whole box. So you could open it, but you couldn't take it out.
Oh.
So then, anyway, this was just a horror story, but what they did was, first of all, it needed to be replaced because it was old. I can't think of the name of the electrical box.
Federal Pacific? The scary? Federal Pacific?
Yeah. I was gonna say, it reminds me of a train name, but
yeah, it does. That's funny.
Yes.
They wound up, so the inspector could get behind it.
Yeah.
They wound up just like taking a drywall saw and going around it. It was a mess in the house.
Yeah.
But like if you see a Federal Pacific electrical box, is that necessarily just like a red flag?
Yeah, I mean, we'll always point that out. That's definitely a concern. Lisa and I were talking about this
I
on the way.
that's what I'm dealing with right now at the house, so I'll talk to you about that.
Yeah, and definitely, we were talking about like the ability for it to even be insured.
It affects the insurability, not necessarily of the whole house. So with that being a known safety hazard, if that house were to catch on fire and burn down because of that electrical panel, and the insurance company knows that it has that type of electrical panel, or they're going to go in after and kind of do the after fire report or whatever, if they found that it had that type of panel, they're not going to cover that house. They're not going to fix it after it's burned down because of that breaker panel. And I actually heard that straight from a State Farm insurance underwriter yesterday.
Interesting.
So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And that's something that any buyer should be asking to be replaced, or to at least get a credit for it to replace if the seller doesn't want to do it. It's a problem.
Did they say about how much it is to replace it?
I'd have to call an electrician.
Oh, that's okay. I'm just curious.
I wouldn't have any idea, honestly, on the exact replacement cost, because sometimes they may find other things associated with the box that would need to be fixed at the same time, because those haven't been put in houses since like the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, because the seller was, of course, again, he was a flipper, and he's like, oh, it's fine, and we have it insured and everything.
And some electricians will say it's fine, It's really going to be probably personal preference and whether you can get it insured from whatever insurance company you want to be insured under.
They'll cover the house, they just won't fix it if it burns down because of the panel, which is a big problem. Because they're known to fail over 70% of the time. So it's not really a matter of if there will be a problem, it's a matter of when the problem will come.
Interesting.
Because I actually dug really deep into those yesterday. Now that I'm having to deal with it, and they're not great. very problematic.
Yeah, another big one that we will always point out is polybutylene piping in a house has a high failure rate. So that would be something we put in there. It's not easy to differentiate between that and like a PVC pipe always. So the inspector will look everywhere that they are able to see if it's just this very small logo that they're looking for to know whether it's polybutylene piping. But that's important because that can affect the resale value of your house for sure. Because if someone finds it and they're like, well, we got to replumb this whole house, so we need X
When was
amount.
that type of pipe used generally? And if you need to ask, that's fine too.
Yep, I'm gonna have to ask my inspectors.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I'll find that out. Trying to think what other specific things. I mean, like lead paint gets brought up. A lot of people who are concerned with that. We don't do the lead paint testing. It requires like a $20,000 machine to be able to go through and sample different areas in the house. Really, the only time that lead's going to be an issue is if they're planning on remodeling. So if they're going to be taking down walls and doing things like that, that's going to be a problem. You're going to have a specialist come in and take those walls down. But if it's there and it's always been there, it's fine. Like as long as it's not chipping off of the wall, the solution would, or even if it is, the solution is just painting right over it.
Yeah, because painting over it will just encapsulate it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but if you have someone who's like, oh, I have a whole vision of an open floor plan, well, they need to probably know that, you know. And that's going to be your homes that are, I think it's 1978 and older.
And yeah, depending on when they got their building permit, I mean, they could technically have been built in 79, but if they've got their permit in 78, so just kind of keep
same with asbestos, but asbestos was banned, but then they still had a huge surplus that they were allowed to use in homes until that was gone, so you can see it even, you know.
Do you see a lot of asbestos in houses here?
No, not very
really.
much. Now, asbestos siding, which actually is a really good quality siding, so if it's in good condition, I would just leave it. It's really good siding.
Ooh, termites.
Termites.
I just had this conversation with her husband, PJ, who is a home inspector with PremierOne, and he talked about how he found termites in a home in the Patty Jewett area.
Yeah. So there's definitely pockets of town where they're more.
How can you tell from the outside? You don't know?
Oh, not necessarily. Well,
as like us walking
it's hard from the
through.
outside.
It's difficult. So, in a typical inspection, all of our guys know what termite damage looks like, so they're going to be on the lookout for it. But a specific termite inspection, another inspector is going in there, and they are combing that place like fine-tooth comb, you know, making sure everywhere where there is wood or likely to be, because it's not always obvious, especially if it's not an active infestation and it's previous damage. It can be tricky to find, but it's so weird because like maybe 10 years ago you would never talk about termites in Colorado because it's so dry, you wouldn't even see it. But the climate is changing, and there's definitely pockets in town where we're like Patty Jewett area where it's like, okay, they're there.
Yeah, he showed me a picture where it was very obvious that there were termites there.
And sometimes it is.
And I was
sometimes-
surprised.
Yeah, sometimes it's not. But you can see like the tubing, the tunneling that they do, the damage in the wood.
So yeah, definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
I have to run to show her.
Okay. Well, unless anybody has any questions, I think we're all set. Well, thank you so much for hanging out today.
Okay,
We'll get you guys connected.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. Give me a call anytime. So I'm one of the owners, my husband is as well, and then we have a whole team of guys who go outside. Yeah. Lovely to meet you guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa.